Welcome everyone. This is ATG's Amplifying Women's Voices in AEC. I am very honored to have all of the panelists with us today. Lots of women representing the AEC industry. Hopefully some good discussion. Welcome to everyone and thank you for your time today. I'm going to do a brief introduction and then we'll jump into the questions. I'm Emily Clark. I'm the Director of Architectural Services here at ATG. Danya, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Danya Tabor-Hansen. I am out of the Knoxville area. I work with Nelson Worldwide in the IT department. I'm a senior CAD-BIM analyst, and I've been in this industry for a long time. I started in AutoCAD 1.2, so there.
You have definitely been around, so thank you, Danya. Sam, yes. You're up next.
I'm Sam Galloway. I work at Autodesk. I've been working with Autodesk software and been in the industry for over 20 years. Thought I wanted to be an architect and decided that I didn't want to be. So this is where I'm at now.
That's fair. All right, Kaitlin.
Hi, my name is Kaitlin Bosma, and I'm a civil technical specialist at ATG. My background is pretty much all civil. And I've been in the industry for about 7 years now, with civil, survey, GIS, all of that stuff. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
Welcome, Kaitlin. All right, Giselle.
Hello, I'm Giselle Howe. I'm the Senior BPM Platform Integration Manager at EMG Works Global. I am also the Membership Manager at Augie, the world's largest CAD and BIM user group. My background is at the intersection of the digital built environment as well as manufacturing. I've been in this industry for coming up on 13 years. However, my start in the industry began nearly 30 years ago when I first started following my dad in his footsteps. So here I am today. Great to be here.
I love that. I'm excited to hear more about how you got your start and what your direction was. So Eyllen, you're up next.
Hi, my name is Eyllen Calderon. I'm here in Little Rock with ATG. I'm an AEC tech specialist for architecture, and my background is in architecture and a little bit both sides of the industry. It's about 8 years now, and I'm happy to be here.
All right, welcome. All right, Liz.
Hey, my name is Liz. I'm a structural engineer with Stewart. We're based out of Raleigh with offices throughout North Carolina. I actually first got a mechanical engineering degree, realized that wasn't quite for me, and then went back and got a civil structural degree. And I've been doing structural engineering for 10 years now.
Awesome. And it looks like we have a few more people joining on here as far as the guests. I just wanted to point out before I get into the questions, as we're going along, if you have any questions, comments, I will try to address those as well, probably towards the end, but you can drop those in the Q&A panel. If you wanted to chat amongst yourselves, definitely use the chat for that. So sometimes people don't know what the difference between the Q&A and the chat. Q&A we will address. We can even follow up later if anyone has any, maybe something resonated on the panel and want to make a connection with someone, just maybe for mentorship or just to ask questions regarding being in the industry. So with that being said, Danya, give us a little bit, I know you gave your background and as far as what you're currently doing, but how did you you've been around a while. How did you get started in the industry? So tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up here. Oh, you're muted. I think it actually muted everyone, so.
How's that?
There you go, you're back.
Okay. As a kid, my sisters played Barbie. I built houses and furniture. When I got to high school, I tried to take drafting and I wasn't allowed to because I was a girl, which tells you this a long time ago. Title IX helped out a lot with that, but the house just told me I didn't have enough math for a girl. When I tried to take my sophomore year, and I had been third place in the state in algebra competitions, algebra 1. So maybe I should have been first or second, I don't know. But I did fight my way in there. I did piss off all the boys in class because the teacher had a thing about quota. And if you turn in so many drawings in the 2-week time period, he would average it out and then he'd say, okay, you got this many in, this person got this many in, here's your quota. You can drop your lower grades if you're above and drop your, and then you had to make up on your own time. But I always set quota. So that pissed them off a lot. I did
The
go
good old
on.
bell curve.
Yeah, I did go on to get an associate's degree in my hometown in architecture, design, and building construction it was. And they made a huge deal about it in the women's section of the paper. Y'all remember that? Yeah, the women's section where they put the wedding announcements and the recipes and things like that. Because I was the first female to get an associate's there, but I was also getting married on the same day. And then wanted to get pictures of my husband seeing me in my cap and gown. I don't have time. I got a wedding to go to. So it was a little bit rocky. And yeah, I was one of the top in the class in architecture there also. I ended up 8 years at home raising kids. I was widowed at 27. I have a 3 and a 5-year-old at that time. Went back to school and got my master's and bachelor's in technology education. And then somewhere in there, I went to, in education, you go visit classes in high school. And the teacher goes, oh, they're drawing on the board in there. He says, come here, let me show you what I got in this room. I was in love. It was a magic cat on an apple. Oh, wow. And it
You
didn't
found your
take me long.
calling.
I mean, and I was there in the early days with VersaCAD and CADLink and AutoCAD 1.2 and all of them. So I've come up, you know, I've been watching them grow up. So yeah, so I got started very young with my sisters playing Barbies, and now here I am.
You were building things. So when you said you had went back to school or you were at home working, was it hard for you to get back in industry after taking time off? And anyone can answer this as well that have been through this. I know a lot of people take a break to, raise their children, and then re-entering the workforce can be challenging at times, coming back because you're missing that. Did you experience any of that?
I had begun to feel like I wanted to go back to work, but I realized with the kids, I'd already started thinking about going back and teaching drafting class in school. So that's when I changed to education. And when I got into education and some student teaching at high school, I'm like, no, those kids are crazy and they stink. So I started teaching college and I ended up running an authorized training center for Autodesk and stuff. And then I came out of there and then I just have evolved with it since then. So I didn't have too much trouble because I got there when CAD was just starting and they needed somebody that knew what they were doing. And I was able to not only teach in the area, but then it was easy when I came out of teaching. I already knew everybody in town. They had already taken classes from me. So it was an easy setup for me. So I had a little rough to begin getting into it, but then later I did have an easy set in. So let's see what everybody else has.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add to their experience of, how did you get into the industry and any struggles you may or may not have had in the beginning or throughout the process?
I can speak to it if anyone else.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, Giselle, and then Liz as well after that.
Sure. Well, as I briefly mentioned, my start in the field was actually 30 years ago, which is 3 and a 0, meaning that I was a toddler. I used to help my dad mark up plans for structural plans because he used to work for a structural steel fabricating company many years back. He worked on a lot of buildings out in Minneapolis and I think even some aspects in Chicago and things like that. So I learned very early on how to letter, meaning all capitalized letters. That's how it's written. So I learned that as my first way of writing, much to the dismay of my teachers when I finally started going to school. And they're like, why does she keep writing in capital letters? So I learned that from my dad. And I kept going with following him in his footsteps. I went to the same school that my dad went to, and I got the same degree. Of course, back then it was more of a diploma when he got it, but I got a degree in architectural drafting and estimating. 2 years later, I went back, or 2 more years, I got the Bachelor of Science in it's a business degree. And I remember there were site visits that we got to do as part of education. And the thing is, my dad's place at work was one of the sites that you could go to. So I kind of rigged it. So I would go on a site visit to my dad's place of work with all my classmates. And I timed it exactly. We'd all go down to the drafting room as part of like, oh, here's the tour. And in front of everybody, I'd say, oh, hi, Daddy. And everyone would wonder what why is she saying this? But I rigged it. It was a thing where I wanted to follow my dad. I loved visiting his place of work. We'd go out to lunch to, celebrate the aspects that we would, follow the same path. We used to drive to work and to school side by side together every day until, of course, he retired, 38 years after that. But I followed him ever since. And I never really paid attention to whether or not I was the only woman or anything like that. I was one of 3 in my graduating class at Dunwoody, and it didn't faze me. I just wanted to be like my dad, so.
Yeah, you knew exactly what you wanted. And I think,
Yep.
kind of leading the way for additional people to follow maybe one day in your footsteps as well.
Yep.
Yep. And Liz, your experience?
I have some similar to Danya, where I was playing with Hot Wheels. I was also, I had the Barbies, and then I also had Hot Wheels, and my dad did auto body. So he would bring home these crazy large cardboard things that like auto body parts came in, and I would cut them up and tape them together and build ramps for my Hot Wheels. And when he was out working on cars in the garage, I would sit there on the floor and he would give me like this angle iron that had holes in it and a pile of nuts and bolts. And basically it was like an erector set, and I would sit there on the floor playing with it, and I would come in and my mom would be like, well, we have to throw those clothes out. Because auto body and grease and oil all over the place. And growing up, I always loved math and science. And in high school, when it was like, what do you want to do? Nobody really talked about engineering. And I was like, I like math and science. And they were like, you could teach. And I was like, and in my mind, teaching was like the teachers that I knew, like grade school. And that just never really appealed to me. And so I eventually found my way to engineering. And I did my first degree in mechanical engineering, but realized halfway through my junior year, I enjoyed mechanical, but all the stuff that I particularly liked was more structural, but my school didn't have a structural program. So being halfway through my junior year, I just stuck it out and was like, I still like what I'm doing, so I'll just find a job in mechanical. Graduated in 2009. Little did I know that we were going through a recession. When you live in a dorm and you have a meal plan, you have no idea. And so when I graduated, I couldn't find a job, and I did tech support for an internet service provider for a year and still could not find a job, and decided to go back to school for civil structural because there's so many of my credits transferred. It took hardly any time. And then as soon as I graduated, 2-3 months later, I had a job lined up from that. So I've just been in civil structural ever since. And getting my mechanical degree, I think I was the only girl in my grade. Granted, we had 2,000 undergrads at my school. It was not a big college, but I was the only girl in my year for mechanical. And then there was one girl younger or in the grade below me in mechanical. And that was it. It was not a lot of us, but it never seemed to faze anybody. Nobody cared that we're girls. So,
Yeah,
and same with my,
one of them.
Yeah. Same
One
with
of
my
everyone,
civil, same with my civil structural. Nobody ever made a big stink about it. It never mattered to anybody. So,
and I think that is just, kind of being said of how there has been, I would say, a shift, obviously, through time and with, where we're at, with the industry right now. And I mean, look at everyone that we have, currently on this panel. I look at all the amazing women in the AEC industry that I work with on a daily basis. And I think there is a shift in that, Sam, you had mentioned, you went down the architecture path, but, then maybe it had changed your mind. Was there something influential that either made you shift, or do you want to talk a little bit about, how you got into this industry?
I did work for an architect. I went to school with a teacher, or I went to work with a teacher at an architecture firm that he was at. The architect was too, I can't think of what the word, just so specific about things. Like, he had his drawing to 256 of an inch, which you can't really do. And AutoCAD doesn't like that. So it was a building that we had measured So every time somebody different measured it, they were rounding up by a 16th. So the building was never correct. It's whatever it was closest to. And we had to redraw that building like 3 times. And because every time it was a different size. And that was kind of the breaking point for me. I was just like, I can't, this is ridiculous. I've drawn this building 3 times. Why are we even doing this? You know, we're not going to dimension a 256th of an inch. You usually don't even do a 16th. It just depends on what kind of work you're doing. So I was in East Texas, and I decided to go to Dallas and work at an MEP firm. I really enjoyed it. I love the people that I work with. I'm not good at science or math though. So engineering was never something that I wanted to do. So I started, I went to school to be a drafter. I mean, it was engineering technology. I started drafting in high school. It was all board drafting, which was what I loved. And then we very quickly went to software. And I was great at it. So I was just out of college and I was, you know, kind of becoming a CAD manager and doing things like that. I really liked those kind of processes. I never heard of Revit. I started working with it. I taught it to myself in a couple of weeks. And then I got a job at a reseller and I worked at a reseller for a few years. And then 2008 happened and I went to work at an architecture firm again. But this time I was a BIM manager, so I didn't have to like draw it at 256 an inch. I just had to make sure that everything was working correctly for everybody on the team.
Oh, perfect. And Kaitlin, you're representing the civil space here. I know Liz is a civil structural, but more on the structural side. But as far as the civil industry goes, did you really know going into the civil space, kind of the demographics, and did you face any struggles, getting into it or, finding your way and your place in the civil world?
So I didn't really face any struggles on the civil side. I mean, like many people, well, not Danya, kudos to her. I mean, power to you. That's awesome. But there wasn't too many struggles. I think the thing that I really had to overcome the most was on the survey side of things, because it's a lot more outdoors. You're carrying heavy equipment. You're doing like more manual kind of things. And I think the barrier that I had to face was that kind of the societal norm that it was like the men do the heavy lifting, all of that. Whereas I'm like, no, I want to do it. I want to do all of the stuff that you guys are doing. So that's kind of the barrier that I had to overcome, just kind of proving to to everybody else and also kind of to myself that I was able to do that stuff. And yeah, so that was probably not so much a barrier, but it's definitely something that had to be overcome.
Yeah, no, I think that I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, Eyllen and I were chatting earlier about, that's something that, and I have a very similar background to everyone else as well. And, doing construction, I always thought, and any person that I coach or mentor that is trying to get into architecture, I always encourage them, do a summer internship doing construction, get out there in the field, because until you really know how buildings go together, it's just really going to be a game changer. But there is sort of, this stigma, right? Women in construction, right? And, Eyllen had a story that she had mentioned before, about, trying to get into construction, and it is a bit difficult. Does anyone, and Eyllen, if you wanted to speak on this, or anyone else, has anyone been, Kaitlin, you were in the field, right? Hands-on.
Yeah.
Eyllen, did you? Yeah.
Yes. Well, my story is a little bit, and there's a lot of things that play on this story. A little bit on my background. I'm from Venezuela, South America, and I graduated from architecture then, but get an internship in Malaysia, Southeast Asia. Over there, I got a scholarship, got a construction management degree, and obviously I was willing to go to construction side. That was the goal. And I was telling Emily that probably we went to maybe 10 or 15 different companies, my classmates, and I tried to find a place where they let me go to site and have that experience. And they didn't let me. They come up with a lot of excuses, this is not safe, you're a foreigner, you're a woman, and all this stuff. And they actually tell me straight, like, it's a big liability for us to have you here. We finally came up with a white lie a little lie. And we say that we were engaged, and it's a Muslim country, he's Muslim. So that was the only way that I got to find a job or an internship, because I wasn't even getting paid in a construction site. That was probably the way that we overcome that barrier. But as I say, it's a lot to play with. I don't know, here in the States and even in South America, you don't find that kind of problems, but over there it was definitely a challenge.
Definitely more of a challenge or a struggle. So at least you were able to, finally overcome it in a way that you could, get the experience that you need. And I think, Sam, you had kind of jumped in on that sort of the construction side as well.
Right. So I was a construction technology manager for a very large GC, but before I was doing that, Kaitlin, one of my useless talents is I can use a total station, right? So if I ever need to go lay out something, I can do it. But the reason I can do that is because I did support for total stations for about 3 years. And that's why my name is Sam. My name is not Sam, it's Samantha. But on emails, people would listen to me, as opposed to when they called and realized I was a woman, they didn't want to talk to me anymore. So unfortunately, I'm not the only person in construction that I know who has done that as a woman. They've shortened their name so that they can get a little bit more respect until people actually talk to them. I would answer the phone and say, "This is Samantha," and they'd just be like, "No, I want to talk to Sam." Well,
and you're like, "It's me. It's me."
Yeah,
I'm the same person. Yeah, that's that is a great example of a tactic or a tip and trick to really kind of force that issue. And I'm sure there's probably people out here on the call that have ran into very very similar situations as well. Anyone else before I kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about the current work environment everyone is in? So let's talk about allies in the workplace. I know, Liz and I were talking about, what allyship means. I know in my past, I have had a very fortunate opportunity, not just at AETG, but in industry. Kind of leading into this, I started thinking about, people that were my mentors and people that I had looked up to. And, I remember being in a place in a firm and, you're looking at the top leaders in the company, right? The people are sitting on the board, sitting at the big table. And, typically, it might have been all men, or in my case, it was one woman. And she actually became my mentor and really taught me a lot and inspired me. It was kind of funny looking back now. I can look at it in a different perspective, kind of looking back during that time, everyone was intimidated by her. She really had to, be a little bit more strict and just, she was kind of like I said, intimidating at that time. And I really respected her for that because of the place that she represented at the table of being a strong, powerful woman. And she was actually on the interior side as well. And so it was just one of those things that just, I was going to send her a note here after this call to just, thank her for that leadership that she probably didn't know she was doing. And I would encourage everyone to do the same. But, how does everyone have allyship, in their current roles, in their company, and what does that look like? And are there any recommendations for, how to make that work in the workplace?
Well, to take a step back, you're saying that she was intimidating. I imagine other people on this call have had the same problem. If you're too forceful, then you know what everybody calls you. And if you're not,
I almost said it, but I didn't.
Yeah. So especially being in construction, there were people that were hitting on me all the time, and it just was very much get out of my office, and my face, I don't smile a lot, but that's from being in construction, right? Just couldn't show people that you were having fun. And I shared my office with another woman, and we would shut the door and we would be great. But as soon as that door opened up, like the faces just changed, the music went off, and it was being very curt and being that we were in charge. So that's not the answer to your question.
No, it's not, but it's in the same along the same lines, because I feel like we have had to portray a certain persona or aspect in order to get that respect and, kind of change, and Donnie, I could see your head nodding, and I know you've been through this, and I see you as,
Yeah.
the fun, lovable Dania that everyone knows, but, maybe there was a time where, you might have had a different role.
Well, when in another company, part of my job was doing training. And I would go to my evaluations and be told, you're condescending when you're training. And I'm like, can you give me more specific? No, not particular. I talked to the girls that I trained, I was talking with all the time. They would like, are you kidding? No, it was always the males that would say that I was condescending to them because I was in a point of power or something coming down. I don't know. But you get portrayed with that. If you show yourself as power, you show yourself in charge, you get portrayed with that phrasing that we've all heard. And it's unfair. We're not allowed to be strong without being about that condescending being put on you. And it's totally not fair. And you could try to work your way around it. And we try to smile. We try to be pleasant. No, we don't always, want to bring you your coffee. We also want you to bring us our coffee. But it's, getting past some of that is really hard. And when they put that mantle on you, you can't get it off without leaving the company. I have found so.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of that. Giselle, did you have something? I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. So there is a book that I definitely recommend on this topic because language is a powerful tool. The book is called Women, Language, and Power, Giving Voice to Our Ambition. It's by Susanna Baldwin. According to the book, there's a lot of ways you can go about communicating to different audiences, whether they're male, female, anything like that. You can be more collaborative, you can be more assertive. But the thing is, it kind of comes across as like different tactics you could use to kind of navigate that. There may be stereotypical masculine traits that maybe people are assigning or feminine traits. And the thing is, you could go around that by navigating stuff in a way where you're not trying to pretend to be someone else or something like that. I found the book to be pretty helpful in terms of trying to address audiences in different ways and figure out ways to, work together. And sometimes certain audiences, it's one way, sometimes certain audiences another way. But it gets into a lot of different nuances with that because, if you're not careful, you come across as like almost aggressive, or if you're
unapproachable,
not, then you come across as not approachable, or the other way, you're either too apologetic, you're not taken seriously. I think the book, if anyone's interested in checking it out, I think it was like $10 on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. Really
that
good
in the chat.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah,
but
if you can find it, maybe
good.
just put a link in the chat or at least the name, and I can send that out to everyone else as well. I think that's great. We need as many resources as we can, especially as we, constantly pivot and change with, new challenges that we're faced with. So, any final comments on that? We were, kind of leading into allyship as well. How are we dealing with that in our current roles with our current companies? Is that something that you're seeing, more awareness, people actually making the effort to, break down those walls? I feel like we have made leaps and bounds since, Dania's original story. And that's why I was really excited for her to get started and talk about that, because a lot of us haven't had the, honor, not really honor, but like, been through that experience to, share that story. So allyship and, just, current roles in their company. And it looks like someone did post the book in, thank you, Heather, for putting that in the chat. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As far as like allyship and current company, I work at a great place. I love it, but I don't like it when I'm working with some people and they're like, well, you should go for that manager job because you're a woman and you'll get it. Like, I want to get it because I know what
you deserve
I do.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've definitely heard that, but Most people I work with are guys. Everybody on my team is. I talk more than they do, but I get along with everybody. None of us have any kind of difficulty getting along in any way. I have a mentor here at Autodesk. He's actually in a completely different division of the company because I was told to get outside of sales to find a mentor, so I did. And he's amazing. We try to talk every 2 weeks. And because he's been here for so long, he has a very different look at a lot of things, and it's good to be able to talk to him about things like that.
Okay. Anyone else on that?
Can I speak about Giselle?
You can.
He's like,
absolutely.
what?
Can you speak? Yes, please do.
Giselle and I met at Midwest University at the ATG conferences, and I watched her for a couple of years. And at one point, I needed to step away from the work I was doing with Augie. She mentioned her job with Augie. That used to be my job. But I watched her, and I needed to make sure I found someone that had the passion and care for the organization. And I reached out to her, and we went through 6 months, 9 months of me passing things over and emails and stuff galore. And she put up with me through all that time and trying to, at one point we had to call a halt. I had cancer for a while. I'm over it, but we put it on hold for me getting through some of the things I was going through that, but she was able to pick it up. And then I followed along, watching things, emails and stuff. After a while I said, can you guys just remove me? She's good, but it's a matter of finding. Sometimes you need to look at someone. If you've got something you can give, look at someone and start watching them, start bringing them along. And I kept encouraging her to put herself out there and stuff. She was already out there, but she's blown up since then. And I was so proud of her. But we met at a conference. She sort of sidled up to me one day and says, can I get in on it was a selfie with CAD Mama Day. And that's how we got started.
Who doesn't want that? Everyone wants that.
Really.
Yeah. So Giselle naturally found her mentor, and kind of, to be able to have that connection. This is a new story for me. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up. And Giselle, were you, is that something that you were, actively looking for as a mentor? I feel like mentorships naturally happen, but there's also the other side where, you look for one, right? I think everyone in their life needs a good mentor.
Right. I think this was more of a natural thing where, we were at these conferences and, we happened to meet and talk, and it kind of turned into a thing, however, it can totally happen too if someone's saying, I'm struggling with this. I see you doing this. This is really cool. Like, could we talk about this? So it could go multiple ways, but I think it was just a natural thing. It turned into something really cool. So thank you, Dania, for that. That was really nice.
Yeah. And I think I would encourage everyone, if you are in the industry, if you're out there in the industry, maybe even on this, this call, or, you're looking on LinkedIn and you really are, you have a connection with someone, reach out. And you would be so surprised with how helpful and how much people enjoy mentorship. I know internally at ATG, that's something that we really focus on. So I would encourage everyone to reach out and find someone if you don't currently have one. And then also, pay that forward and, mentor someone else in that aspect. And there's a question that kind of along the same lines in this that I think would fit really nicely here is there a benefit from having a female mentor versus a male? Sam said she had a male mentor. Do you think there is, is it better to have one or the other, or is it based on something else?
I can relate better for some reason with him. I've tried to find female mentors. It didn't really work out. Even when I was in school and I went to work at that architecture firm, that was my teacher. He was a guy that, helped me get that job. Definitely a mentor of mine. Can't really think about having ever had any women that were mine. So.
Anyone else on mentorship?
I saw somebody else. I saw
No,
somebody else
you.
in some chat rooms and stuff. And I started watching her and I said, hey, I can't do this Revit question answer. I don't know, Revit expert thing. I said, but maybe you could. And I sort of plugged her into that. And I said, maybe you should be working here, and plugged her in on the blogs and stuff that I'm working on. So sometimes it's just watching and handpicking and like, here, go do
And just kind of encouraging.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that light
Yes.
encouragement to kind of, and that's something that I do on my team as well, as like, let's, you're always a little hesitant to take that first step, but if you have someone as your cheerleader, right? Someone behind you, in your corner, and encouraging you to, jump into something new outside of your comfort zone. If you don't believe in yourself, having someone believe in you really makes it a lot easier. So look for those signs and look for people who might be, needing that extra push. Okay.
I was going to add one thing.
Yeah.
I've had both men and women for mentors over the years. So for me, I think the one thing I liked was it just has to be someone who takes notice. When I was a teenager in school, I actually I had an incredibly hard time with public speaking. Like, I wouldn't do it. The fact that I'm doing this right now is like a stark contrast to what I was when I was a teenager. And the thing is, I had someone take notice. It was a social studies teacher. He just noticed that this was really hard for me, wanted to talk to me and try to figure out, who I am and what I'm about and everything. And he encouraged me to try, and well, so many years later, I took it as like, let me try really hard with this. And now I do webinars and I've done presentations and stuff. And now I help other people do that as well. But yeah, it didn't matter to me, male or female. I've had multiple, I've even had people that invited me to be co-speakers with them and stuff too. And it's just because someone took notice. So I think that's what it was for me. It wasn't necessarily like, you must be male or you must be female or anything like that. So someone that takes notice is what I appreciate. So yeah.
I really like that. And we can be those people that, take notice on, the next generation or who is coming next. Liz, did you have anything to add to that?
As far as mentorship, no. I mean, I haven't had too many mentors, but my first PE that I worked under, I would consider him a mentor. And I think he was a mentor because he was what I needed at the time. It was my first job out of college, and I don't know what I loved about him. It wasn't just engineering. He would, I can be a little bit hot-headed sometimes, and he was always there to remind me that we can't control other people's actions towards us. We can only control our own actions and how we respond. And that was the style of mentorship that I needed at the time. So while he did help me with engineering, he helped me in a lot of I called him like my Zen master, because he helped me in a lot of those ways too. And that was just kind of not because I was looking for a mentor, but because he I don't know, he was just what I needed at the time and kind of became one.
And then I think we were talking kind of to close out the, finding an ally at work as well, I think is key. And you had a really, interesting story about a situation that you had, that you were a part of. I would love for you to share that.
Yeah. So this wasn't not a work related story, but with my boyfriend, I'm a chronic worrier. And so he is very used to going into that mode of like, letting me know when I'm starting to worry unnecessarily about things and kind of pulling me back from that. And we were walking downtown one time, and I turned around to like take a picture of something, and he continued walking. And when I turned around, he had already crossed the street, and he was like a block away. And behind me, I looked, there was an empty, like an open door to a parking garage, and it was dark in there, and there was no pedestrians and no cars anywhere. And I had a moment of like, oh my gosh, I'm alone. And his back was to me. He was way down the street, and I like called to him, and he could hear it in my voice that I was like, get back here. Please don't leave me alone. And I could tell he at first thought I was just worrying like I do, but I explained to him where my worry came from. And I expected him to just be like, oh, there's nothing to worry about. I'm right here. And that's not what happened. He paused and he said, as a 6'5" guy, I'm never going to know what that's like. And it meant a lot to me. It still means a lot to me. It happened like 5 years ago. That he didn't dismiss it as me worrying unnecessarily. He took me seriously. He said, I understand that as a guy, I'm never gonna empathize with that, but I believe you.
Right. And that's the key.
And that to me is being an ally. It's saying, you know, due to my own life experiences, whatever that is, there's an experience that you have that I'm never going to understand, but I believe it. And I believe that it's powerful, and I believe that it's important, and that it affects you. And that now that I know about it, I'm going to keep that in mind. And to me, that's an ally.
I think that is so well put. And, I think that example applies to, you know, a true ally and what that means. And, finding that internally is, amazing. And I really wanted you to share that. So thank you. I think that was very impactful. And I'm sure other people have, similar situations that they can really resonate. It may not be something you understand, but to have, to be empathetic and, understand, I may not know what you're going through, but I'm here for you for that. Perfect. All right, so let's talk about the next generation, right? So this is exciting. We've started kind of with Dania, where we're currently at. We all have different experiences, being a woman in the AEC. So how do we start looking at, what we can do for the next generations coming up? What can we put in place? If someone had asked from the audience, what is the next wall that we need to break down for the AEC industry? Or is there something specific that, you want to take on, internally for yourself or your company to ensure that, every woman out there has a voice?
Something that pops out to me, and it goes along with one of the things in the Q&A about women not applying for jobs because they don't meet all the qualifications. I think in that same vein, the pay gap stems from sometimes we don't advocate for ourselves enough. And I don't know why that is, if it's something ingrained that when we're little, or if it's just like inherently in a generalization that men maybe are a little bit more willing to be confident and put that step forward, and maybe we're not. I don't know, but I think the pay gap needs to be addressed, and part of it is we need to know our worth and advocate for ourselves that we should be getting paid what we're worth. And same thing with the job description, like, other people might apply when they only match, 7 out of 10 items on the checklist, and, women tend to need to meet 10 out of 10. And then somehow we still doubt ourselves that we don't meet the job qualifications. So I think it all goes hand in hand. And yeah, I'm not sure how to solve that.
Yeah, no, I think that is, I don't know that there is a cut and dry answer, just something that, blanket, but I think we're having the conversation. I think that is a good start, making it, be more aware. As women in leadership, we can, have that influence. If you are someone who, is involved in the hiring process, is to, remove that as something you even think about. I know when I hire, I look at the individual, I look at the experience. It doesn't matter if they're male or female. It's really based on that. And it's just, kind of spreading the knowledge. Did anyone have any, tips or tricks on how to that? And something you really said is just knowing your worth, right? I think that is something that all women struggle with, or a lot of women struggle with, and just voicing that and, pushing back. It's okay to push back, right? I think we've been shut down so many times that sometimes we just stop asking, right? There's a point in time where you just stop asking, but to be confident and to know that you are worth it, and to keep pushing, right?
I have a,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just as far, go ahead. Yours is probably related to that. Mine is on the finding a mentor. So you go ahead.
Okay. They did do a study that said if pay ranges are posted, women will be more willing to kind of put their worth in there. They've started doing that here at Autodesk. Everything in the United States now has the pay range included in it. As far as the walls that need to get knocked down, I think it depends on which part of that AEC you're talking about. When you're talking about construction, there's still a lot of things that need to change. You have people that have been in the industry, you know, superintendents that have been doing this for 40 or 50 years that don't respect women and don't really want to, or they're just very sexist, whatever the case may be. So whereas in architecture, there's a lot more women in architecture than there are in construction. So I think it really depends on which part of that you're talking about. I don't think there's an overall answer for all of it.
I think culturally it's starting to change too, because, you know, if you look at Danya's experiences and you look at my experiences, and I even chatted with a few of the people in my firm who are the women who are in their, you know, mid-20s and their experiences. And it's getting better. It's increasingly getting better, especially with those STEM outreaches in school, with young kids, and really making sure that every kid knows that this is accessible to them. It doesn't matter your gender doesn't matter, your income doesn't matter, the AEC, the, you know, math and science and this whole, it's all accessible to you. And getting that push in schools and just letting kids know that really starts that change in society, so that when those kids grow up and they're the ones doing the interviews, they know that it doesn't matter. The gender doesn't matter. And that anybody is equally capable. And it's a slow change, but I think that it will get better over time, especially with doing the outreaches with the kids currently.
Yeah, I think I think that is, obviously it's changing, right? We're on this call today. It is changing. We are seeing things happen, you know, and it's up to us to start, you know, with that younger generation. I know, Eyllen, you know, recently went out to a school to talk about the industry and show the cool new things that we're doing. And you and I have had conversations about, you know, just setting an example to your daughter, you know, of, doing that. Did you want to maybe touch on that, or if anyone has experiences with, you know, mentoring? I mean, at that age, you know, just kind of being an example, you know, showing them to expose them at a young age of, you know, what's next.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of like my motto that when I became a parent, that is just about a year ago, it was always teaching by example. So I come from the Latino culture. It's the machismo part is a little bit more strong, I would say. And, you know, mom has to stay at home, dad provides and all that. And it's a generational thing. So for me, it was always, when we decided to have a baby, we were like, you know, I want to make it different. I want to lead by example. I want to teach my kid that she can continue, you know, following her dreams and being a mom too, because it's awesome to, you can have both sides of the pictures if you want. And it is hard, it's super hard, but you can do it. And that was what I was telling Emily, like, there were many times that, especially after you're back for 3 months, like, yeah, I really want to go back. Is it that important? But that thing of leading by example for me was the motivation that got me here. And I hope one day she can see that she can do it, even being a mom.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
Danya, Sam? Yep.
Yeah, so I've been in the industry for a while. Unfortunately for me, it was, you got to be one of the guys to fit in. Like, that's just the way it was. And it was fine. I was able to do that. But I have been at jobs where I was extremely sexually harassed. I saw them doing it to other people, and the other person didn't have a voice. And I was disgusted, and I was telling them that they weren't doing the right thing. So I'm sure other people, I'm sure Donnie has seen it. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, for a long time, it's just been, it is what it is, right? Especially when you're looking at construction. I've had, you know, supers that were night and day. You know, it just really depended on which job I was on. But that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
No, perfect. And I know, Kaitlin, you have a little one at home as well. So that, can be a struggle with, sort of balancing that, and also, wanting to, like Eyllen, lead by example and, set the expectation and the standard of, what you're currently doing.
Definitely, definitely. And this is actually funny that you brought this up, because a couple of weeks ago, the local children's museum had like an engineering day on a Saturday, where they kind of had all of the local engineering firms come in and do like kid-friendly events that, let them learn about it. And I brought my daughter to that, and it was, I mean, I'm not gonna, lie. There wasn't very many girls involved in any of that, but I mean, she was right there with everybody, just super excited to be involved. So it's definitely, trying to get her to experience that side, that it is an option. Because I know when I was growing up, engineering usually isn't an option, for women. It's not, you go to the more, like, it's not even on the list of, possibilities for most women. So getting that, like getting your voice out there and your face out there, like, look, there are women in this industry. There are, we are, it is becoming more women friendly, and like, this is a thing, and showing them. And I think that's really important, because like I said, it's not even on the list of jobs that most women even consider, unless they're involved in like math or science or something like that. But I mean, nowadays the computer does most of the math for you. So I
so
mean,
you can eliminate that. You don't even have to have a strong set on that.
Exactly. So, but yeah, but definitely, it's definitely important to me to show my daughter that it is a thing, and that it is super cool, and there's so many aspects to it. So
yeah, excellent. So really just leading by example, and, being aware and taking it on yourself, right? Being that person that is going to make the change. And I think that's what probably each one of us do that are on this call today and out in the audience as well, is, speaking up and being active, and, just really being involved. Pick something that you're really passionate about, and, stick with it. Maybe it's, volunteering at a school to talk about, career days. And there's just so many opportunities out there that give you the ability to help, guide, and hopefully it'll, resonate with one person, right? You think if you can just affect one person and kind of get them on board. Giselle, do you do anything along those lines? I'm going to guess yes.
Yeah, I have done, what was it called? I think it was called Grit to Great. It was an event put on at Apple Valley High School in Minnesota when I used to work for a manufacturer. I don't know if it's still going on, but it was a thing where we'd go to this event. There were obviously highly impressionable young women there, and they got to explore different career opportunities and hear from women in STEM fields. And so there was a speaker there. I think it was sponsored by the manufacturer I worked for, and they, it was a whole breakfast situation. So that was really neat. That happened. I think it was like 2019, 2018, around there that I went to that. But that was a fantastic event. And before that, I also went there were some other STEM events at like a charter school out in St. Paul, I believe it was, somewhere around there. But yeah, I've talked to kids before about that sort of thing. And nowadays I got 2 kids of my own. I got 2 little boys, and one of them's in kindergarten and the other one's soon to be. And well, they're super into Minecraft. And so I'm trying to transition them into like, yeah, that's Minecraft, but like, check out real construction. There's like a house that's being built really close by us right now. And I'll say, yeah, you call them wooden planks right now because that's Minecraft. But, there's 2x6s and OSB and glue lamps and headers and stuff you could go nuts with here, So I always try to bring it up as something neat that anyone could have access to, even though I have 2 little boys. If I had girls, it'd be the same situation. So yeah, that's always been a neat thing over the years that, I've worked on and stuff like that as well. I'm trying to think if there was other examples. Yeah, that's probably yeah, what I got.
The Science Museum in St. Paul has an excellent engineering exhibit during engineering week that I definitely ran around with all the little kids doing the engineering hands-on and stuff, and then jabbered about engineering to the person working with 5-year-olds sitting next to me.
That is cool. I'll have to check that out. Thank you.
It's so good. Yeah, it's
So-
probably already passed now, but yeah, when I lived in Bloomington, I would always go over to the Science Museum, and their engineering week is amazing.
Oh, nice. I will make note of that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Excellent. We're learning
Tons
a
of
few
hands-on
things
stuff
here.
for
And I
kids
think that's
too.
what
So
makes it fun, right? You know,
Mhm.
and I
Yeah.
think for kids and adults.
yeah. And
Yeah.
also in Minneapolis, I went to a Habitat for Humanity that was a women build. So it was just
Yes.
women there that day. And that was nice because everybody got to do something and not feel judged. I feel like if women try to build something and they don't intuitively know how to like shim a door frame and make it like plumb and level, then they feel that they're going to get judged by the guys that are there. And it's just, I think it's one of those things that's in our head, like, oh, somebody's going to make fun of us. But having it be like a women only build, everyone was able to just be a little bit more free and make mistakes. And we got a cool shirt that says, girls play house, women build them. And it's being a structural engineer, it's one of my favorite shirts.
That is
Great.
awesome. Definitely agree with that. When I was just getting out of school, and actually when I was in school, I've done a women build as well as some Habitat for Humanity. It's like a point of passion where I could drive by a house in Minneapolis and be like, I
Yeah.
worked on that. I built some scaffolding there. I installed a window there, or some sheetrock.
Yep.
Like it's cool.
Perfect. And then Dania, I think you had one last thing, and I was gonna give everyone an opportunity for, we're coming up on the hour, maybe, final closing thoughts, statements, one nugget that if you could give to someone, but I'll let Dania start that.
Yes, we're talking about what we have done in our mentors. How do you find a mentor? Start following somebody on social media. Start seeing what they do. If you're interested in, comment on it. Get in touch with them and reach out to them. And also, I put a link in for a Latino American architects group. It started out, I mentor speakers for Autodesk University. I ended up with a panel, and they were talking about what they did together and stuff. And it became, well, what are you going to do with it from this point? Well, that we're going to start a LinkedIn group, and it blossomed into a mentorship program from a panel at AU. So start looking at things like that, where you can go to build on things like that. That's it.
That was fantastic. Any final thoughts, comments? I think all of this information was great. I feel like, we could just keep on chatting about our experiences and sharing this, but I feel like this is really step one to, getting people to reach out. It wouldn't surprise me if someone out in the audience reached out to someone on this panel to, for a mentorship opportunity, or, just to make a connection. So, I think that I'll give someone else a chance to add in, and then I will wrap it up. Any final thoughts?
I think I was going to mention something that shows my nerdiness, but I wanted to say that the culture is changing, and I think you can see that in like my nerd culture reference, where George Lucas didn't know how to write Princess Leia as a strong woman without making her angry, and we kind of talked about that in the beginning. Like, to be taken seriously as a strong woman, you almost have to step over into anger, not anger, but you know what I mean? Almost. Mm-hmm. And, that was the 70s. And I think you look at women in pop culture now, and you can see strong women who aren't angry. You can see strong women who project confidence without being called names. And so our society, we're moving in the right direction. And I think it's evident in pop culture. It's evident in Dania's stories. It's evident in, the younger people that I've talked to have never once been told, oh, you shouldn't, go into engineering because you're a girl. And I find optimism in that. So I hope we just continue making progress on that.
I think that is honestly a perfect wrap up, and you kind of tied it all together, and to it is changing. I mean, it is very evident, and I would just encourage everyone to have your voice be heard, be confident. You don't have to, I love that, you don't have to be angry, you just have to be confident and, stand behind your worth and your belief.
Yep.
So I just want to thank everyone for attending, all the panelists for sharing your story. It's been a lot of fun. I expect that, we're going to continue on with some of these series. So there will be more coming. And again, I really appreciate everyone jumping on to share today.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of the other content on our channel.